Midsummer is no doubt one of the most important celebrations in Finland. As its name suggests, to the brightest of minds, it is celebrated in the middle of the summer, around the summer solstice. While it has its roots in ancient pagan rituals, its celebration today often involves excessive consumption of alcohol and stupidity. As I will explain shortly, that is in fact in line with the more ancient Finnish Midsummer traditions. In other words, this video deals with the Finnish Midsummer's ancient pagan roots and how some of them are still visible today. It is hard to say exactly how long it's been celebrated in some form. Summer solstice has historically been celebrated not only in Finland and in the Nordics, of course, and some traditions are likely thousands of years old heritage spread all over. Just like with the winter solstice, often called Christmas in English. Based on this, I imagine Midsummer is a tradition at least as old as agriculture. In Finnish, the festival is called juhannus. Other than juhannus, I don't know a direct translation for it. The name is of Christian origin and refers to John the Baptist, Johannes. But that's not, of course, what our ancestors would have called it. It likely went by the name Ukon juhla, Ukko's celebration. Ukko, of course, being our god for weather, harvest and thunder. The latter often gets the old man confused with Thor from the Norse pantheon, but Ukko shares much more in common with Baltic and Slavic sky gods. Ukko was an important deity in the old pagan society for the farming population. Celebrating the sky god on the brightest, longest day of the summer and during the nightless night makes a lot of sense, and it is tightly connected to the harvest. According to the words of Anssi Alhonen and Jon Björkman in a 2017 video on the Taivaannaula channel, the celebration marked the end of a chill summer period before the hard work of reaping and harvesting. While I'm not aware of any surviving description of midsummer rituals from pre-Christian Finland, we do have a description of a ritual devoted to Ukko in the springtime, in order for the sowing to be successful. This was recorded by Mikael Agricola, whom some of you might already have met in my videos covering the history of Finland. In his 1548 Bible translation he writes, "Ja kuin kevätkylvö kylvettiin, silloin Ukon malja juotiin. Siihen haettiin Ukon vakka, niin juopui piika että akka. Sitten paljon häpeä siellä tehtiin, kuin sekä kuultiin että nähtiin. Kuin rauni Ukon naini härsky, jalosti ukkoi pohjasta pärsky. And as the spring seeds were sown, then was Ukko's cup toasted. There was Ukko's bushel fetched, and drunk were both the maid and mistress. Then many a sin was committed, as witnessed by ears and eyes alike." And the translation of the last lines is not suitable for this platform. Of course, we have to remember that Agricola was a devout clergyman, and he would have painted heathen practices in bad light with every chance he got. But I do think there is a good amount of truth in what he says, especially considering the modern midsummer habits with excessive alcohol consumption, and assuming they could be a continuation of something older. It is a belief and an old proverb, although I don't know exactly how old, that the level of drunkenness correlates directly with the success or failure of the harvest, or nowadays just an excuse to get wasted. With the long and bright day and nightless night with nature at its prettiest, blooming flowers, green woods and all that, Midsummer has been a heavily erotic and romantic festival. Which is no wonder after some 16 annual months of horizontal snowfall, frost and starvation. One downside of reproductive midsummer activities in the past would be the suboptimal time of birth for the baby. I realized this while reading the book Jumalan vihan ruoska, a 2012 book by Mirkka Lappalainen covering the Great Famine of the 1690s. Although I still argue that the famine was anything but great, with up to a third of Finland's population dying from hunger and consequent diseases. He explains that being born towards the end of the winter or early spring would significantly hinder the newborn's chances of survival. This is because the winter rations would be pretty much used up by that point, and the slowly melting snow wouldn't provide much food either. And that would be 9 months after midsummer. Nowadays, on the other hand, starvation is hardly a problem for the Finns, as we are a rather obese people and the grocery stores are lined with mega pussy after mega pussy. So other than maybe baby potatoes, midsummer feasting is no longer that significant for most Finns. In the past, seasonal foods, many of which were at their best during midsummer, were key to the celebration. A quick search reveals that midsummer cheese was a big thing and apparently sweet in some regions. Nowadays, a very common food is a piece of intestine filled with starch, fat, antioxidant agents, connective tissues and traces of meat that is known as grilled sausage. I would be interested in learning more about traditional midsummer foods, but I'm feeling lazy. So if you got any info or recipes, please do share some in the comments. Another tradition still carried on are the bonfires, another custom shared with much of Europe and beyond, and dating back to who knows how long ago. Or maybe someone does know, but I couldn't verify it. Anyway, the fires still gather large crowds of people, and the lighting of the fire is a task of great honor. According to Anssi Alhonen's article on taivaannaula.org, the assembling of the bonfire pile might start weeks in advance. The bonfires of old could be loaded with tar barrels, and I imagine they would often have been an impressive sight compared to the safe, by-the-book bonfires we see today. Just like Kekri and the winter solstice or Yule, Joulu, midsummer was a time of buzzing, magical or otherworldly activity, presumably triggered by the seasonal changes in light and dark, a bit like jakoaika, without a better word, roughly translated to intermediate time, as described by Risto Pulkkinen in his book Suomalainen kansanusko. During this time, the risk of all sorts of things we would nowadays call supernatural was high. The bonfires were a means of keeping the more sinister spirits at bay. And if we want to make some forced connection to the present day, I could say that nowadays, while that belief is maybe no longer shared by most, the smoke can be useful for repelling the numerous mosquitoes. But that's a dumb idea, so I won't say that. Speaking of magical activity was and is still very much practiced. I don't know how old any of these rituals are, but it does bring immense joy to my heart that such magic is still practiced today, while many of our pre-Christian traditions are long forgotten. Due to the fertile nature of midsummer, the magic focuses heavily on finding or foretelling a husband or wife, or bringing fertility or lempi, which is now often translated as love, but used to refer to a power behind fertility and lust, grossly oversimplifying. For example, a woman could roll naked in the field of her crush in order to attract a future husband. For some reason, I can easily imagine some lady still performing this ritual after consuming some fluids. There are plenty of love spells too, often in the Kalevala meter. Apparently, sacrificing needles into sacred springs is also a good idea. Why needles, I have no idea. According to the aforementioned Taivaannaula video, there are stories of young boys discovering that the water of the spring would turn into vodka after the bonfire, and they would spend the night drinking it. I would like to know if any of you have tried any midsummer magic ritual and whether it has worked. Also, I'm sure there are plenty more that are worth sharing, so do let us know in the comments. As well as any other midsummer traditions not listed here that you've done, plan to do, or have heard of. Whether you're from Finland or somewhere else, it would be interesting to compare. I would argue that Finnish people are quite trollish in nature, as hinted by the character narrating this video. There are plenty of extremely vulgar place names on the map that, according to folklore, got their names from precisely that, trolling. When cartographers were traveling around gathering data for map making, the people would give them the most creative names. Why I bring that up is because when talking about the midsummer rituals, I can't help but wonder exactly how much people believed in their power in the past and how much was just for fun. What do you think? Were they taken as literally as an illiterate Christian interprets the Bible, or was there some degree of joking involved? Sacrificing food or drink to Ukko might very well have been part of this celebration. Sacrificing people, on the other hand, is rare these days and generally more connected to Sweden, thanks to that movie. While Ukko might not get any human offerings, one could argue that the same can't be said about Antti and Vellamo, the water deities or spirits. That is, because getting drowned is a fairly common activity, with 6 people on average entering Ahti's realm for good during midsummer in the past 10 years. Of all potential chances to end this video, a joke with potentially bad taste is as good as any. This has been an overview of the Finnish Midsummer and its pagan origins or customs or something. I'm tired, so now it's time for the usual ending, in which I say that if Finnish mythology and history are close to your heart, see a cardiologist and then check out my other videos. Also, the music here is by the kick-ass artist Karne. Do check his music out. Links are in the description. Yeah, and happy midsummer as well, whether you're worshipping Ukko or making offerings. You could also consider offering your hard-earned money to me by becoming a member of the channel or by buying a shirt. Just try not to drown.